What's up, Canes fans? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Got a huge show for you today. I am back from California. A lot of stuff happened while I was gone. We've been giving it to you daily, even as I have been in the mountains up in the highest Sierra. A lot of commitments, a lot of big news, including on Saturday, the commitment of Daylyn Upshaw, wide receiver out of Alabama. Some other big news worldwide happened that day, so it kind of got buried. So we'll bring it back here and talk about what it means, what the player brings to the table, and how he's going to impact Miami's wide receiver room. First, I want to talk about some folks that are always impacting the lives of their clients for the better. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE. 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. They don't get paid until you get paid. Paid. I screwed that up twice already. Got to work on that. Pete, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. You buried the lead. It's EA Sports College Football 25 Day, man. If you got the early access to the game, you can play it today at 4 p.m. So I know a lot of Canes fans and college football fans are excited about that, as am I.
Yeah. I was talking to my wife about making a purchase there for the sake of the kids, and the father-son bonding. Yep. But I don't know. I know how much traction we're getting on that one. We're really trying to cut down the video games, so we'll see. But well, I'll make it happen.
Yeah, she might have to make the exception there.
It's part of the job, at the end of the day,
for research purposes, of course.
Exactly. But man, a lot to talk about here. A player that we talked about on the podcast a bunch now is officially in the boat. It was a very weird commitment because he didn't have the bat signal. Dennis was on a plane. We didn't have our instant reaction because I was in Santa Monica Beach at the time. And then, of course, worldwide events took place. So we haven't broken this one down, but would love to talk about Daylyn Upshaw, the wide receiver out of Phoenix City, Alabama. Miami continues to do work in the Deep South, including the state of Alabama. Cole McConaughey, Cam Pruitt, Bobby Pruitt. Last year, guys look like they're going to contribute potentially as freshmen. You got Tim Merritt, cornerback from the Mobile area earlier today. And now we're talking about
earlier in the cycle, not today. I know you're running on fumes right now.
Listen, I got off a plane at 7 a.m. this morning. So this is pushing through, but yes, earlier in the cycle. And now Daylyn Upshaw from Phoenix City commits. And this is a guy that really is kind of my type of wide receiver, Pete. I know you follow the draft closely. I try to follow the NFL trends closely. They don't always mirror what's happening in college, but oftentimes they do. And I think one thing with Upshaw, as you pull up his huddle here, is this is a guy who is, number one, productive. Number two, has a lot of play strength. And number three, runs really sharp routes and seems to have a lot of craft as a receiver and IQ as a receiver when you hear his coach talk. So watch the highlights here. Again, sheds the tackle. This is not a track star. I don't think he's slow by any means, but he's not like a Tyreek Hill out there running around. But I think when you look at the traits that have played in the NFL, Upshaw has him here. Again, you see the variety of route running. You see his ability to track the ball. You see the strength again there. He's listed at 5'11.5", basically a solid 6 foot, 180. You expect that to increase as he gets into the college weight room. And again, the route running versatility. It's like a guy like Mark Pope. You watch his Southridge highlights. He's running 2 routes. This guy is running an entire tree with sharpness, with purpose, and really showing a lot of skills that translate to the ACC level.
Yeah, I think polish is the word I've used before on him, D, just basing off of the huddle clips that we've seen. And look, we're big fans of guys who play different sports, both sides of the ball and all that. But a lot of times the receiver position, you're projecting a lot of time. Well, they have the athletic ability, they have the quicks, they have the speed. This is a guy who is a wide receiver already, right? So I think a lot of times those traits, when we talk about it, really translate well to cornerback. But you're talking about a guy here, again, not that he's slow, right? But you're looking at him running all sorts of routes here. Again, another broken tackle, yards after the catch. And again, good competition that he's facing here in Alabama.
Yeah, we're watching long touchdowns, making guys miss. So we're not talking about, a bad athlete. This is a very good athlete who happens to be a very good football player. Talking about receiver traits that translate, kind of jumping off what you said, Pete. Production has proven to translate. We talked about in the podcast before, way before Daylyn Upshaw came on the scene, that with receivers is something you want to see at the high school level. With Daylyn Upshaw, 1,185 yards, 15 touchdowns, 59 catches, so a robust yards per catch. Played for a team that won the state championship in the highest classification of Alabama football, 7A. His teammate, Cam Coleman, 5-star, going to Auburn. So one thing that really caught my eye with Upshaw was his coach, his wide receiver coach, had an interview with Gabby Arrudia out of 247, and he said that Upshaw is the smartest kid he's ever coached by far. Also said he's the most dynamic player he's ever coached, which is interesting. Again, remember, 5-star player was on his team last year. This is a very good team, high-level program. There's not some like small school. It just has one D1 player, and they're excited about him. Most electric players ever coach, smartest players ever coach, and raved about the route running, which you can see on film. That's his wide receiver coach. His head coach is a name that might be familiar to Canes fans, which is Patrick Nix, former Miami offensive coordinator, father of first-round pick Bo Nix. So very interesting name there, who is the head coach here of the state championship team. And again, you see in the highlights repeatedly. Route variety, sharpness in routes, play strength, breaking tackles. And Pete, one thing that I've seen here with the NFL draft and with guys that succeed in the NFL is that there's different shapes and sizes of these receivers, but speed, track speed, just freak athleticism is not the difference maker when it comes to production in this position. Look at Tyreek Hill, yes, certainly. DJ Moore, certainly. But you look at the other top 10 receivers last year in terms of receiving yards. CeeDee Lamb, 4'5", 198 pounds. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4'6", at the combine, 197 pounds. Puka Nacua, 201 pounds, 4'5'7". Brandon Ayuk, 4'5" flat, 205. Nico Collins, 215, runs about 4'4'5". A.J. Brown, 226, 4'49". Mike Evans, 4'5'3", 231. So the strength and the ability to play the position and get open and catch the ball.
You just said it right there, D, getting open. I think the word, at least talking to NFL scouts about guys, and again, it's not the same exact thing here, but can he create separation? That is what the receiver position has really come down to and become it at the next level. It's obviously having more speed makes it easier sometimes to create separation. The defensive back has to play a little bit more off. You have the threat to beat someone deep, which obviously he still, as we see here on the huddle, has that ability. But if you can create separation, they're not worried so much about the clock time. It's about the play speed, and can you get open and make it easier on your quarterback? Because if you're having to make these contested catches as a receiver every time, number one, it's tougher on the quarterback, and you're making it tougher on yourself. And listen, some guys have the ability to make those contested catches, but with a guy like Upshaw, I see that ability to separate and make himself open. As I'm going to pull up another clip here from, I believe it was the Under Armour camp as well. And
you could see a good frame on the guy. When you talk about separation, strength also plays a part in separation because, it's not flag football. You got to get off guys. And also, even if you do separate, you still sometimes have to catch the ball in traffic and come down with it in a way that you don't in sort of a 7-on-7 type of setting. So that's why I went through all the weights of the top 10 receivers. These are big, strong guys. Not all tall. Some of them, average, some of them tall, but all strong. And again, with that quickness, Cooper Kupp, who was not on that list, you could throw in the same category. Very strong wide receiver, 4'6" runner. Upshaw's a composite 4-star. Again, I don't know what he runs. He's making long touchdowns on these highlights. But I think when I watch him, more so than a Dallas Wilson, who's very much a size speed freak, more so than a Vernell Brown, who's really that dynamic type of receiver. I think with Upshaw, it's that classic wide receiver profile that plays production, strength, and route running. Again, we're repeating it because it's important. And look, you've heard me say this, right? Now, go through your Miami Hurricanes Rolodex going back many, many years, probably since Andre Johnson. And the receivers that Miami's had, we've had some guys that were absolute speedsters, 4'3" guys. I mean, Mark Pope ran a 10.6. We've had guys that were 6'5". We've had different types of bodies. Ryan Moore, number one receiver in the country when we got him. The guys that have really excelled have had that IQ, which again, first thing the coach mentioned when they talked about Daylyn Upshaw, the work ethic, the play strength, and the route running. I mean, Pete, if I ask you, who would you say the top most productive wide receivers of the last, 10 years or so in terms of being in the NFL from the Miami Hurricanes?
I mean, KJ Osborne right now is that's and listen, I was we were recruiting KJ Osborne when I was over there at FRM every day, and he was a guy that the scouts would always say, well, I don't know how fast he is. That's going to be the biggest thing. What does he end up running? I believe he ended up running in the high 4.4s, which was big for his stock, but he was not a guy who looked on the tape like he was blowing by people. He was very, very good, very consistent catcher of the football, great route runner, great locker room guy and all that. But he was strong. That was one of his biggest assets. And if you meet him in person, he had some nice bulk on him as well. But again, the polished route running, the consistent hands, and play strength is a word that you use. But Osborne, right? I mean, he's right off the top of my head. Alan Hearns was another one.
That's
right?
the other one I was looking for.
So I mean, those are two guys right there who fit that mold.
Exactly. Those are the two names I was thinking of, Alan Hearns and KJ Osborne. Strength, IQ, route running, toughness, and then they produced with tough quarterback situations. And, of course, the production carried on into the NFL with both of those guys. Look at the receiver situation now, right? Miami just had a receiver ranked, what was his NCAA rating, 90?
Restrepo, yes, 90 overall.
In the video game, ranking him as one of the top 10 receivers in the country, according to these national video game ratings, which, again, take it with a grain of salt, but it shows the national perception. What does Restrepo bring to the table? I think he played last year in the 210s. You told me that some scouts have looked at him as a running back, so clearly the play strength is there. Clearly the IQ is there. And then, of course, the production and the toughness. So that to me is what Upshaw brings to the table. And I think when you look at guys that have been productive at that position, they come in all shapes and sizes, but there's certain unifying traits among those guys. And I would say Daylyn Upshaw has those traits.
Looking at the rest of the receiver class now, D, where does this put Miami? Because obviously that's been a question fans have had. Joshua Moore went to Florida, have missed out on a couple other guys there. Vernell Brown, obviously going to be making his commitment here soon, but we aren't, sure if he's a guy that's going to be coming to Miami. So where does this put the class at this point?
I think you get one in the boat that you love, which is Upshaw, someone we like. Again, a composite 4-star, checks all the boxes. Alabama players have been real good to Miami lately. That's a good one. I think of Vernell Brown trending towards Florida right now, where he's a legacy. Miami's going to keep recruiting him. Josh Moore, his recruitment's been all over the place. Miami's going to keep recruiting him. Jamie French, Miami battling Texas there. That's a real battle. Loved Jamie French when I saw him at the overtime 7 on 7. I thought he was better than I expected him to be. Closer to that 5 range than that 4 range from what I saw. Other guys, Jerome Miles from Utah. There's guys that Miami is recruiting with the expectation that when these receivers are putting up big numbers in the fall with Cam Ward, that Miami will now look like a more attractive wide receiver destination. You need to have proof of concept to recruit some of these wide receivers. That's why Jeremiah Smith goes to Ohio State instead of Miami. Got to turn that trend around. Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Jerry Jeudy, Alabama, that was proof of concept there. Miami needs to have some proof of concept here with some prolific receivers. Good step last year with Restrepo and Georgia's production. You want that to continue, go to a higher level with Cam Ward. And of course, you got to bring in a quarterback to throw to those guys, but I think they'll have confidence in Cristobal to get that done. You got Luke Nickel in this class, who's an Elite 11 quarterback. Some other guys who can get it done as well if you don't bring in a transfer. So that's really, I think, where wide receiver is keep relationships with guys, keep scouting, but understand that when the results are there on the field, it's going to make it a lot easier to push. And if guys are coming to schools like Florida, Florida is a school that is expected to have a pretty poor year. I think they're over under on the wins is 4 or 5.
I think it's 4.5. Yeah, 4.5 last time I saw.
Miami could kick it off with a nice win there and let that season spiral. Those guys come back into play. Dallas Wilson with Oregon. That's kind of a zany kind of recruitment. You could see that one going all the way to the end. Of course, that's a player Miami covets as well. So I think receiver, you got to get somebody in the boat, which somebody you want in the boat, somebody you think is capable, is over the line of what you want, which is Daylyn Upshaw. You keep playing with these other guys, keep trying to keep them in the picture and see what happens on the field. Hopefully that forward momentum can get you some of these guys in the boat. Two guys, by the way, they're already in the boat. If you were at a Canesware this week and you got to meet the Malinois brothers, amazing event at Canesware. That is the kind of things that are happening at Canesware. It is Canes fans heaven. Getting close to the season, you got to gear up. They have everything you need as a Miami Hurricane fan, whether it's just summer stuff for the beach, whether it's uniforms, whether it's a nice polo, whether it's the sandals, the shoes. Get ready for the season properly. It's that time. It's already July 15th. Get that wardrobe in shape. Caneswear in Davie or caneswear.com, the spot where Miami Hurricane fans shop. So yeah, that's it, man. We got Upshaw. A lot. You see with the Raw shirt, we did the stubs breakdown. Just a lot of commits in the boat this week. You got some big names that are in the picture. Most notably, DJ Pickett. Also have Jabari Antoine. I will be getting the latest on both of those players and more with the bank this week. Again, just touched down. So I want to make sure I talk to everybody, get the most up-to-date information that you could have. The last update I heard on DJ Pickett, which you communicated, I think, Pete, when I called you from California was, I felt good. Will Fong, I think it just had a very pro-Oregon update at the time. They just put the crystal ball in for Oregon. I called my people and I said, look, I feel good about DJ Pickett. And as you can see.
And then I think a couple of days ago, I think Oregon is now saying that it's a money play. Or Oregon accusing Miami of winning recruiting battles because of money.
Right. So listen, I'm going to try to give you the most accurate information, even if it's against what the prevailing winds are at the time. If I don't have a fresh update, I'm not going to just tell you something. I'm working on it. I will get you the absolute latest on those two players, but a big weekend for Miami Hurricanes football. Stay tuned to the Canes Insight podcast. For all the latest for free, please like and subscribe to this video. Also, CanesInsight.com. The forums are bumping 6.9 million posts and counting, and they're going crazy over these two players in particular. A lot of talk about the cornerback position on those boards. So sign up for free. Doesn't cost you anything, and you'll be plugged in right to the heart of Hurricanes football. Nothing gets updated faster. Nothing is more current with Canes news than the CanesInsight.com forums. And that's it, man. P, anything else you got?
Yeah, just listen, stay tuned, everyone out there. I'm going to be doing a lot of different college football 25 content. I know, listen, it's not for everyone, but there's a big group of the fan base who's very excited about this. I was tweeting out the rankings of the ratings that I was able to find over the weekend. Chris Johnson, 98 speed, 98 acceleration. I did a video last week when they released the top 100 players, and I kind of said some things I was curious to find out. One of them being, what was Chris Johnson's speed and acceleration going to be? And that was a good sign, man, for EA, in my opinion, for a guy who didn't get that many snaps last year. It means they did their research on track times and stuff. So it'll be fun to use him and, kind of go through this roster, see who opted in, who didn't. I know there were a lot of questions about guys who didn't opt in, and from what I saw, a few notables: Sam Brown, Daryl Porter, Damari Brown, but there will be roster updates from what I understand. I don't know if those guys are going to have a chance to opt in now after the fact, but there was a cutoff time for them to get in on time. Hopefully they can get in the game if they want to get in there, but should be fun to watch this virtual season unfold as well.
No doubt about it. And you mentioned one name, Sam Brown, who you have to create into the game. One thing that caught my attention while I was gone, 247 spoke to a scout who said that Sam Brown was a top 2-round receiver. This is not a Miami source or anything like that. This is just 247 national guy talking to scouts about Sam Brown. They said he's a top 2-round prospect, somebody that runs in the 4.4s electronic, 6'2", 195, can jump all day, going to probably have one of the biggest jumps in the combine. Produced, you saw him tear apart Texas. That was something the scout mentioned. So he's a guy that we haven't talked about a ton. We interviewed him. We broke down his commitment. We were the first to report the name on the Canes Connection calls, which, by the way, if you want to get names like Sam Brown first, sign up for Canes Connection. I'm going to be back doing my weekly Zooms or bi-weekly, regular Zooms for the Canes Connection members, those subscribed to the official NIL Collective. I will give you the freshest information as soon as I get it, like Sam Brown, who you guys heard first. People listen to the Canes Insight podcast heard second. Now he's on the field getting second-round grades from NFL scouts. But I digress. Very interesting to see what he can bring to the table. It's going to be fun to play the game with all these skill position players that Miami now has. Damian Martinez, another guy that was mentioned as having pretty high grades from NFL scouts. Cam Ward, we know what he does. It's a lot different than when we first got here and we were talking about, a ragtag group of young receivers. Romello Brinson, is he going to step up? The running backs were kind of lackluster. The offensive line was abysmal. Long way from that first spring practice at Lockhart. Those of you who were there, what's it called now? What's the
Chase Stadium?
Chase Stadium, the Inter Miami Stadium. First spring game there. The skill position looks a lot different than it did at that time. Miami's upgraded those positions considerably with guys like Sam Brown, with guys like Damian Martinez, Cam Ward, the additions or the development of guys like Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George. It's going to be very fun to watch this camp this season. We'll keep it all covered, and we'll start the season early with NCAA. So P, keep them tuned in to everything you're doing.
Yep. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. As always, go Canes.
Go Canes.
This an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew. Down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news. Cause it's all about the you. And nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody do it like CanesInSight. Nobody